And we will now begin In the Footsteps of Samuel Pepys with our first location, which is St Bride's Church just off Fleet Street. But a little recap before we go in.
He was born in London above the shop, just off Fleet Street, in Salisbury Court, where his father, John Pepys, ran a tailoring business. The house backed onto the parish church of St Bride's, where all the babies of the family were christened, and 2 were already buried in the churchyard. Salisbury Court was an open space surrounded by a mixture of small houses like John Pepys's and large ones, once the abodes of bishops and ambassadors, with gardens. It was entered through narrow lanes, one from Fleet Street opposite Shoe Lane, another in the southwest corner leading into Water Lane and so down to the Thames, and river steps 50 yards below. People had been settled here since Roman times, and when Samuel Pepys was born in 1633, a Christian church had stood on the spot for at least 500 years. A block to the east was the Fleet River. A footbridge spanned it between Fleet Street and Ludgate Hill, and from St Bride's you could look across its deep valley, much deeper than it is today, with houses crammed up both sides in a maze of courts and alleys, to old St Paul's, rising on its hill above the city. This was the western edge of the city, and Pepys's first playground. Pepys's birthday was on the 23rd of February, 1633, and his baptism by the Vicar of St Bride's, James Palmer, is recorded on the 3rd of March. Samuel, son to John Pepys, wife Margaret. The same year, in October, the Queen gave birth across town at St James's Palace to her second son, James. After his christening, he was given the title of Duke of York. He had a staff of officials paid to rock his cradle. And unthinkable as it would have seemed then, he was destined to become one of Sam Pepys's closest associates.
Hello ladies and gents, hope you're all well, and you join me on Salisbury Court, the modern day Salisbury Court. This plaque marks the site of the birthplace of Samuel Pepys. In a house on this site, Samuel Pepys, diarist, was born in 1632. He died in 1703. Samuel Pepys, son of John Pepys, who was a tailor. John Pepys had his tailor's shop and house in this site, which is all swept away, that site, and where we're going to go next. The originals were all swept away by the Great Fire of London, the house in which he was born, and the original St Bride's Church as well, which is where we're going now. We look out onto Fleet Street here, and we go to St Bride's Church, which has a few claims to fame. In the original St Bride's Church, that's where Samuel Pepys was christened. Also, St Bride's Church in 1864 is where Jack the Ripper victim Polly Ann Nichols got married. Sorry. Another claim to fame as well, earlier than that, is this is the first place in Fleet Street where the printed word was published by Wynkyn de Worde, who set up the first printing press here in Fleet Street. Also, that famous spire up there, in the early 18th century, a young apprentice baker who fell in love with his master's daughter wanted to impress her and wanted to make the most impressive wedding cake. And his inspiration came from this spire, and that's said to be the inspiration for the English, or the tiered wedding cake, came from that story. That baker apprentice lived not far away from here. St Bride's Church, also known as the Printer or the Journalist's Church, being so near Fleet Street, it has a strong history and association with journalism. This is an entry into a vault, and all you can make out is int something vault 1657. Also, in the original St Bride's Church where Pepys was christened, all the Pepys children were christened there. Just 1 year before the Great Fire, Samuel Pepys had his brother John buried there, and he had to bribe the gravedigger to jostle the other people along in the crypt to make room for him. The, by this time, already packed to bursting point crypt. So yeah. It does have a little miniature churchyard with some interesting points and some still legible stones. These ones here, these tomb slab stones, they came from inside and were put out here after the war when the church was restored. A lot of them are completely worn away, but some of them are not. This one's all in Latin. But here we've got Mr. Ebenezer Ibbotson, died the 25th of April 1743, aged 55 years. Interred beneath Mrs. Susan Rich, wife of Mr. William Rich of Ludgate Hill, who died November the 8th, 1810, aged 52. Also the body of Mr. William Rich, husband of the above, who died January the 24th, 1811, aged 56. And then you've got a verse. And you've got also Mr. Henry Thomas Rich, son of the above, who died October the something, 1828, aged 33 years. George Evans, of this parish, victualler, who died the 8th of September 1766, aged 61 years. Also Susanna Evans, his wife, who died the 21st of October 1777, aged 62 years. You've got George Evans, their son. And the rest of that I can't really make out because it's quite badly worn away. But the church is having some restorations done on it at the moment, conservation work. But round the side here are more inscriptions. These are interesting, these ones. Well, they all are interesting, aren't they, really? But you get some side views of the church this way. And the extreme, I don't know if you can see it, but that window just there is really bowed. Like really bowed in and bowed out, look. I don't know if you can make it out. Yeah, you can. It's really bowed. Just along here, you've got these. Samuel Langby, deceased December ye 3rd, 1686. And you've got the body of Marjorie, ye wife of Nichols Holgan, was buried July ye 16th AD 1702. Margaret Holgan, his daughter, was interred 5 years before. And next to it there you've got MB, whether that's the same family or something, I don't know. Here you've got Mr. IR.RR.ER. And then over here, WB91, whether that's 1991, 1891, 1791, I do not know. And then ED 1702. Whether the conservation work will include that window or not, I do not know. But the Old Bell Pub, one of our locations that we've been to, if you've seen it yet, lovely one, down Brides Avenue. The Crown and Sugarloaf, was originally one big pub called the Punch Tavern, and then in the 90s, in our own time, a bust up between two separate companies had the leasehold to it basically, and there was a big bust up, so they walled off one part of it stayed the Punch Tavern, and the other part became the Crown and Sugarloaf. Oh, it's cold today. Yeah, at the original St Bride's Church, here for many years, a medieval church, and there's been a place of worship on this site since Roman times, so it shows you its age. That was burned by the Great Fire and then replaced in turn by this structure, which is Sir Christopher Wren, which in turn was destroyed or badly damaged in the Second World War. So, yeah. And now we shall go in. Take my hat off. Thank you. Thanks very much. It's a beautiful old church, it really is. This is its belfry here. Looking out onto Salisbury Court, just right through there where Pepys was born. It's high altar. And here's the one I told you about, which is, oh, let's turn that flash off. Didn't realise that was still on. Mary Ann Polly Nichols, 26th of August 1845 to the 31st of August 1888. Jack the Ripper victim. She was a parishioner of St Bride's and married in this church on the 16th of January 1864. Remember her life, not its end. And I think that's very fitting. Dennis Papin, Fellow of the Royal Society, physician, mathematician and inventor. His digestion was the precursor of the steam engine. Born in Chittenay, France, 1647, buried in St Bride's at London, 1713. That's very interesting. We'll start off with the side aisles first. The Church of St Bride was destroyed by enemy action on the night of the 29th of December 1940, was rededicated in the presence of Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II and His Royal Highness Prince Philip Duke of Edinburgh on 19th of December 1957 by the Right Reverend and Right Honourable Henry Colville Montgomery Campbell, Lord Bishop of London. The church was restored under the direction of Walter Godfrey Allen, according to the original plans of Sir Christopher Wren, adapted to present needs in the tradition of that master. As I say, it's journalistic links, very strong journalistic links. So Henry Rogers, Hallinson, publisher, 1966 to 1929. I won't focus on all of them, but as you can see, there's a lot A lot of people mentioned and remembered in this church. And the restoration on this one really is spectacular. They've done an amazing job. There are people remembered all over in this church. And when the Word was made flesh and dwelt among us. This is a memorial to journalists who's lost their lives in modern times. At this altar, all-night vigils of prayer were held for the journalist John McCarthy, Terry Anderson, and all the hostages held in Lebanon 1985 to 1991. This altar, day by day, we pray for all those who face danger, persecution and death in bringing truth to the world and pictures to a troubled world. In bringing the truth in word and pictures to a troubled world. We'll cover this side aisle first, and then we'll do the high altar last, which is quite special. You get a little teaser glimpse there of the high altar, which is lovely. This organ was presented by Colonel T.H. and Lord Astor of Hever, 1957. And that is an impressive organ, and the phrase pulling all the stops out comes from church organs, and you can imagine the impressiveness when you pull all the stops out on that one. And just over here, I'll show you. Here's its font, which survives from the Wren Church. It survived the war destruction.
But Mount also, on Bay
This sculpture, fashioned by Clare Waterhouse in 1999 to replace the original marble sculpture, represents Virginia Dare, the first child born in the Americas to English parents who were married in this church in 1585. The original was stolen, and this one was made to replace it. And these are the charity boys and girls from St Bride's Parochial School. And that's very impressive, isn't it? And just here, Wynkyn Worde, the first printer in Fleet Street, died in 1535, and he was buried in the original church that was burned by the fire. He was the first man to set up a printing press in Fleet Street, setting it off on its long and prestigious printing history. That's a recreation of what Wren put in the original church that he built to replace the one from the fire. As you'll see here, the mural painting behind the high altar by Glyn Jones was inspired by the design provided by Sir Christopher Wren, as described in Hatton's New View of London in 1708. It is presented by Gordon and Gotch Limited to commemorate the centenary of the firm, founded in 1854. a light shining in the darkness. The Guild of St Bride was originally established in 1375, its primary purpose being to maintain a light burning before the statue of St Bridget the Virgin, St Bride, our patron saint. Since March the 24th, 2020, when the church doors were required to be closed due to the COVID-19 pandemic, the light on this altar has been maintained burning as a light of Christ that continues to shine throughout the dark days of the virus, as a reminder that the spirit of St Bride's remains very much alive. And this beautiful altar rail, which replicates the original, was presented to St Bride's Church by many friends to mark the first 10 years of the ministry of the Reverend Canon John Oates, 9th of October 1994. And that really does look old and original, doesn't it? And there you've got statues just in there. That's one. And you see flames there. That represents the church rising twice from the flames, once from the Great Fire and then once from Second World War destruction. It holds a lot of history, this one, doesn't it? Beautifully restored. Hope you all found this interesting, ladies and gents. Now for some historical images of the church. We even get an old block print of the church from Pepys' day, the original one. And then after that, you'll join me for the Crypt Museum Chapel, which is below our feet, of course. The once full-up crypt was cleared out after the war, and yeah, we'll be going down there, and we go from Roman history right through to the current day, which is very interesting, with some real gems down there. So I hope you'll all find that interesting. Thanks for watching, and now for our historical images. Now for our historical look back, with an old block print image of the medieval church, the pre-Great Fire of London church that Samuel would have been christened in. And its other claim to fame is the burial place of Wynkyn de Worde, the man who set up the first printing press on Fleet Street. Here is his modern memorial stone. That church would be swept away by the Great Fire of London, to be rebuilt by Sir Christopher Wren. And here are the plans and images for that church, which was rebuilt. And interestingly enough, the tiered wedding cake is said to take its inspiration or origins from this church spire. Nice 18th century image of the church from Fleet Street. Late 18th century, early 19th century image of the church looking from another angle. This one is St Bride's Church, 1824. Its other claim to fame is that it's the place where Mary Ann Polly Nichols married, 26th of August 1845 to the 31st of August 1888. She married in this parish church in 1864. And I like the bottom bit. Remember her life, not its end. Of course, it was a sad end. She was, for those of you that don't know the name, a Jack the Ripper victim. But here's the only nice image I could find of Mary Ann. I wouldn't put any of the others on. They was a bit unpleasant for this kind of genre. An image of the church as it was before it was destroyed in the Second World War. This image is early 20th century, 1920s to 30s. It shows the interior as it was. The photograph on the left shows St Bride's Church in London in the 1930s, but firebombs reduced it to rubble on the 29th of December 1940. The photograph on the right was taken for the National Building Record in March 1941. And that's it there. It shows what the firebombs reduced it to. But like many London churches and many London church congregations, its congregation refused to give up. And as you can see here, from this christening photograph, they carried on worshipping, marrying and christening their children in the ruins of the church until it was rebuilt after the Second World War, giving us the lovely church that we see today. Hope you all enjoyed the tour, ladies and gents, and join me again soon for our next Samuel Pepys location. If you enjoyed this one, you may enjoy the Crypt tour, which is a part 1 and part 2, and that takes you right back into its real history and past. Thanks for watching all. See you all soon.